It's Katie Rose, straight up with a twist. What's up, humans? Hope you had a lovely 4th of July. I do not have any plans and probably won't even eat a hot dog, but that's fine. I start feeling somber when 4th of July comes around now. It's not as patriotic as it used to be for me, considering our politics today. And I wish I could enjoy it more. And yes, I'm older and I do not enjoy the fireworks as much as I used to. Plus, I'm from Orlando. I see fireworks all the time. And I think it's funny that people are like, ooh, look at some fireworks. I'm like, okay, fine. Shoot a few on the day of. Scare all the animals in the neighborhood. But it's so frustrating when people, they buy too much fireworks and then they're just doing it the entire week. I'm like, guys, we live in Orlando. Just drive down the street. You can see some fireworks. Like, stop this nonsense. So yeah, I don't know how you will be celebrating, but it'll be a bit of a somber day for me. You know, I used to go to 4th of July parties all the time. I just don't feel good about it anymore. So hopefully things will start changing. I was watching The View the other day, and I haven't watched it in a while, but I used to watch it all the time. And, you know, they were talking about how, why is it that Democrats can openly discuss that maybe Biden needs to step down and, or, pass the baton, or, we can put someone else in there. Even if people are saying, if Biden did have a really bad health issue, or if he passed, like, at least we have Kamala, and we'd have a female president for the first time. Yay. But like, we're able to discuss things in a mature manner. And yes, we notice that while he has trouble speaking, he still knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? He's still aware. He's just struggling putting words together, which is different from Trump, who knows what he is saying, and there's no excuse for it. Or, as we know, his terrible way of formulating sentences. And it's like he never can make a complete sentence. He kind of gets distracted in the middle of himself speaking in a way. And that's why his quotes are just all over the place. But the comparison is that, Biden's been in this business. He's been working in politics for years and years and years. He has the resume to back himself up, where Trump doesn't have that. So it blows my mind that people still are like, no, he's the better candidate, when people are comparing the two. I still think I would rather choose someone who is open-minded, who knows the business, politics, and who's been in it, feet first since he was young, and that has a soul and is kind and has great morals. I would rather support that person instead of the person being, possibly winning the debate, which I don't even care that he won that debate, or however people want to put it. But it's ironic to me, just that people can't see, the fact, or just consider a different Republican candidate. Like, just give it a moment to like think. It's just scary to me that his followers are that manipulated by him, when he's clearly stating how he uses his voters, and that you guys will do anything he says. Steve Bannon going to jail, stealing your money for a wall, and it seems like they're oddly proud of that fact. Or they just have very terrible listening and comprehension skills, which is kind of the way that I've decided it. The man is a proven moron, who faked or cheated his way through school, had bone spurs, and, didn't join the military. He changes his mind when it suits his narrative, and Democrats have been staying positive, and we're not stooping to these vicious, derogatory levels, slander, curse words printed out on flags and bumper stickers. It's absolutely shameful. And it's not, people get online and they're like, oh, we'll stop with the memes. The memes are the thing dividing the country. And I'm like, no, it's the followers. It's the people. Some people are posting memes to try to show you something, and then people say, well, think of it from the other perspective, and that's how we see it. People have been posting like, it's like Scar and the hyenas, and people are like, no, that's Biden. And it's like, what? Like, how can you not see it? How can you not realize from the other perspective? How are you not seeing it? And now I look at Republicans who listen to Mr. T like they have a disability. I just do. I'm like, you really think that? Oh, I'm so sorry. And then when they double down on their perspective, I think of them just as hateful people who want to repeat history. It's like watching us get ready for the Holocaust. Like, seriously, no matter what we say, they stand by the dictator. And we all wonder, how could that have ever happened in history? This is why. This is how. And I really think there's like a common lack of, like I said, comprehension. They hear a tone that they like and a few hype words, and they're not actually listening. It's like they're going to these rallies like it's a stand-up comic up there, and they're not listening. They're not going, that's not what these rallies are about. It's supposed to be presidential and mature and an adult outing, and it feels like they're going to a rock concert to get wasted, and they're not really listening. I really do think it is different, like the way that, Trump, he acts like he's saying something, but it doesn't actually make any sense. There's no point to what he's saying, and he's all over the place, right? So when he's quoted, it's like, I'm sorry, what were you trying to say? And it's like this big distraction, which is different from Biden, who's just old and struggling to put his words together. Trump needs to be able to make a case on behalf of this country, and he hasn't, except for to eradicate, and get rid of Democrats, which is, in my opinion, a death threat. So, and it's hard because as much as you want to stay away from it, and then you realize it feels like you really can't change people. People really do become set in their ways. There's also the other side where it's like, I must continue to try and fight for what I believe in and to educate people, and it's not to say I'm right. It's just, it's trying to get, for Democrats at least, when we post things, we're just trying to get through. We're not saying we're right and you tell me why you're wrong. We're hoping that you can open up the dialogue so that we can say, all I ever want is for a Republican to be like, why is that? Or how did you come to that conclusion? Or, I didn't know that. Or could you explain? They refuse to open up that door to having the conversation. Like, where did you get that information? They just completely knock it down, and they're like, no, nope. It's the other way. And that's their only defense. They can't actually defend their standpoint. It's just, but it's not that. But how about your guy? Who cares what Trump did in his personal life, or that he was a convicted felon? What did your guy do? It's just deflection. It's sad. They're really sad tactics. Statistics, polls, they're not always accurate. Trump was saying Mexicans are coming for Black people's jobs. Okay. Well, so the jobs that Americans don't want, like digging holes in the ground for your new fiber optics, it's like, so are you saying you want the Black people to have those jobs? So are we going back to slavery? Because that's what making America great again is about, is just going back in time to where things are more whitewashed. So Trump wants the Black people to know their place. And that's the thing, is people keep discussing this, but we also forget when we talk about white people jobs and Black people jobs, there are literally less Black people in America than white people. So you can't just compare it evenly, right? You have to look at everything. Not to mention, I guarantee it, that if we got rid of all of the immigrants that came over to work their asses off to have a better life in America and have those shitty jobs, and Trump wasn't complaining when he hired them for his hotels, they will work for less, and it makes the corporations bigger. And make more money. I guarantee he would never be like, oh, look, there's a job available. I made a job available to my son. Go get it, son. Americans don't want these jobs. They don't want them. And we don't, quite frankly, we don't have some of the trade skills that they have from their country. America is kind of stupid. We only know one language. I hate to say, it's so frustrating to me that it's not part of our education, and people need to write letters. Write a letter to Miguel Cardona. He is the Secretary of Education. We need to change the way that we are running our education in this country because we are dumb. We don't have specific trades. We depend on other countries, for those skill sets. And instead of bringing foreigners into our country to lead the way, pave the way, to teach us those skill sets, we bring them in as slaves, and it just feels like that's all the white man ever wants is to use other people as slaves and pay them very, very low wages, and we need to be able to learn and teach white Americans how to be independent and fend for themselves, in this world. And I think we do have this mindset that we are the richest country in the world and we don't need to do what the little peons do, But we watch all these movies, right? When the world blows up and then it's like you got to start over. It's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how to do anything." you know? So just some food for thought. And I like to think that America could be reunited on the fact that this is like the biggest joke in our history, but I don't think they see it that way. Like they truly back up Trump. It doesn't matter what this man does, and that is what is scary. Like I'm literally scared for real. And it really does feel like kind of biblically or spiritually, like there really is no light without the dark, the yin and yang. And it's just like Democrats and Republicans, it's like good versus evil. Like it just feels like we have to coexist this way. And we're just feeling it and seeing it more on its head now that more people have voices. Maybe it's always been there, The power is coming from social media. The manipulation, maybe the manipulation wouldn't be as harsh and we wouldn't bring out the darkness as much if we didn't have the social media. While I understand the campaign with Biden has to kind of fight back and it's like fighting fire with fire, I really do hope that they continue to push what they want for America and they continue to push the light and they push the positivity so that we can finally have a president and a race that isn't just about bashing one another. It's like, what are you going to do for our country? Show me that. Don't stoop to Trump's levels. Don't act like a punk teenager just because he is. And we really just need to fix our policies. We need to change the rules and laws. And, either Americans start doing the work only immigrants will do and corporations cough up the dough, or we give them work visas and the ability to receive citizenship after 5 years. The system is broken. So let's talk about what we're going to do for our country, making it right, not hurting the innocent people. And this propaganda has to stop as well. People are like the deep state, like that stuff just frustrates me because even under Trump's leadership, and I mean, it's something that you should look up and just fact check, but, the government, while under Trump's leadership, they made fake accounts like on social media to scare the Filipino people from buying China's vaccines because it was about money, right? Like, where are we getting our vaccines from? And just look up that little bit of information and then tell me if you don't think that's part of the deep state. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there is a huge list of people that Trump has pardoned, and it's usually people in business, right? And so it's just funny to me that you don't see like people are like, oh, he's one of us. And I'm like, he's never been one of you. He's been fed with a silver spoon his whole life. He has no idea what it's like to be a regular class citizen, and he proved that with his pardons and just, making fun of the choices that Biden had to make. He got, Brittany Griner back and was somehow made fun of that and called stupid. And it was an embarrassment to the US, that it was unpatriotic. I'm like, you know nothing about patriotism, you friggin' wuss with your bone spurs. Britt exercised her very, very American right to peacefully protest and kneel down as a daughter of a police officer. That is America. That is what America is about, is our freedom of speech, our freedom of expression. And Trump keeps patronizing people and posting as if it's a negative thing. That is part of being an American. Paul Whelan's brother, David, came to bat and defended his brother, saying that he doesn't suggest Trump cares now any more than he did, when he was president. That Biden has done more in the past, 24 hours than Trump did in his 2 years of presidency. And families that are struggling in situations like that, like, they see it, they know it, and they see the choices that are being made. So, can a person change? I kind of want to talk about change today. I've often said, like, bad people, like, they know what they're doing, even if it's subconscious. I just feel like in real life, people are getting better about calling people out and catching them in the act. If a dog shits, you got to catch him in the act, right? Or he's not going to learn. And when you call someone out, sometimes they'll backpedal, but eventually they'll change their behavior because they've been caught and they don't like that feeling, right? People who often get away with things all the time, they continue to do it and it gets worse and worse and worse. But then when they get caught, they back off. But allowing them to continue to do it just makes them more powerful. And I feel like that's what's happening with Trump. People are allowing him to continue to make mistake after mistake, to be mean, to say the mean things, and people are cheering him on, and he can't learn from it. I can only imagine that if his supporters, his constituents, would actually put him in his place and say, what you did here was wrong. Let me tell you how it's wrong. This is bad. And it was a person that was on his side, maybe he would backpedal. Maybe he could change. Maybe he could learn from it. But without people saying, okay, Trump, this thing that you did was bad. I believe in your idea on this take, that's fine. That this part, whatever that you guys think he's going to make America so wonderful and magically put money in your pockets, which he has not done yet. Just the rich are richer. If you at least acknowledge, tell him, I see that you did this to your wife. I see that you did this to your family. I see that you said this really misogynist thing to this woman. That was not nice, Trump. At least, like, when he does something bad, tell him. If you really are, ignoring it is not going to help it. Think like a parent. Are you going to let your kids just get away with that kind of behavior? That's what I don't understand. It's all these supposed evangelical people that are like, I go to church every Sunday and blah, 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 and I love Trump. And, and then they're the ones that are allowing this behavior, and then they're turning a blind eye to it. That's what I don't get. So maybe if you start putting him in his place, he could change. Now, on the lines of that, can a person really change? I've kind of thought about this a while because there was a podcast I listened to recently, and they were talking about narcissists, and she's supposedly a professional, and she was saying a narcissist will never change. So basically, don't ever be married to one. Don't ever be around one. Don't be with one. It's like a narcissist must hopefully be a lone ranger, because you can't live that way with a narcissist. Can they change? And she says no, that they can't. Now, I believe that you can grow. I believe that like a plant, it's like, does a plant change? Does a flower change? Does its biology change? No, but it grows. And whether you're fat or you're skinny or you're budding or you're blossoming, it's really about how you grew. Your elements stay the same. It's about where you grew, how you grew, what helped you grow, what you became. We always discuss, like, change will do you good. I'm a different person today. Are we happy that we're different people? Do we want to be different? Do we want to change? Or do we just simply want to grow? And even in marriages and relationships, we actually have to grow together the same way a plant reaches out to another plant. The roots expand and they all talk to one another. There's this whole system of connection and the way that they interact with one another. Sometimes you can see it so crazy. It's like plants live in slow motion. So their time is different, and they can sometimes outlast humans, and you'll see when branches start falling that another tree nearby has like an arm that reaches out and catches that branch that is falling. Like, it's crazy. And you can like, this is what I love going on walks. I'm like, oh, look at that. That's crazy. Or like these two plants like grew together. Right. And I feel like your partner knows that you can do life alone, that maybe you're independent or whatever, but a good partner won't let you. They're still going to catch you when you fall. They're going to be there for you. They're going to grow with you. So, can a person change for the better? I have seen so many different examples of this. It also makes me confused. And I feel like giving therapy a chance is a positive, but I also think going to different therapists is the way to do it. I don't think, because I think you can also be manipulated by the experience and thinking like, oh, this is what everybody experiences, but every therapist is completely different. But I do think the first step is feeling and acknowledging what people say around you to be true. If you can't acknowledge that, then you can't seek help because you're just going to a therapist to then further manipulate the therapist and convince them that you're fine. And that's not going to heal you. I also feel that sometimes people can be misdiagnosed and they can be pushed in a direction that might not really identify who they are. You know, I think people often are going to therapists to be put in a box and be categorized and be told that they have 8 different diseases and disorders and personality traits, and it might be a part of it, but I don't think it completely identifies you. I think we're just now getting to understanding different personality traits, but I still don't think they can all be tied up into a pretty bow. And I just feel like, for example, like, do you have depression? Do you actually have depression? Or are you experiencing trauma that makes you depressed? Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like those two things are different. And that was something I realized. I started recently believing that, oh my God, do I have depression? You know, and everybody has anxiety. I am trying to get to the root of my issues through my own research because I feel like doctors have no idea. And I started, realizing that these times that I get depressed are rooted in trauma that I had growing up. And that doesn't mean I have depression. It means that certain things trigger me and this trauma comes back up. And also acknowledging that not everyone in the world is exactly like you and that people really do handle things differently. They see things differently where I might get offended more easily about something than somebody else would. And at the end of the day, humans are flawed and we don't always get it right. And sometimes we also don't present all the information, which can create a, you know, misdiagnosis. And I think that is what happens sometimes is we present ourselves a different way. I heard this quote recently where the actor said, how you present yourself to the world is your identity. It's your armor. And I'm like, well, what are we protecting ourselves from? Why are we creating an identity? Why can't we just be who we are? So there's a lot of ways that people think about things. It's just like, oh, well, when I dress this way, I feel like people respect me. And that can be true, but you also don't want to lose yourself in it. I have actually been going to see doctors. I've decided I'm going to use my insurance as much as I can. And I've been to a pulmonologist. I have been to a cardiologist for as young as I am. I've been to a neuroscientist. I've been to a gastrointestinal. I have been to all the places, chiropractor. I have done acupuncture. And by going to all of these doctors and my, main practitioner, I realized I think I figured it out. For not all of it. And I've been saying this forever. I always just like the very first thing I tell people, I'm like, this is my background. I was an acrobat and a dancer. I was an acrobat and a dancer. And then I'm like, I have swayback syndrome, which is like lordosis. And I explain this. I always lead with that because I'm like, I want to let you know where I came from. And so what's been happening in my life is I get numbing in my legs. My legs hurt if I'm sitting in a car too long. My low back is in a lot of pain. And I've also explained that I have infertility issues. And it feels like I have poor circulation. I'm like, my toes go numb, all these things. And so I think really, even after going to a chiropractor, going to a massage therapist, going to PT, I've done all these things. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I just have um issues in my lower back. And to me it's very obvious. You can look at me and I'm like, I've never had an ab in my life and I work out a lot, okay? And I worked out a lot when I was younger. And even when I was younger I didn't have abs and I was very concerned about being flexible. So I stretched my back and it created tension. So I was looking at like where I created tension in my hip flexors and my IT bands, and I'm like realizing I'm pretty sure because of all of that pressure I've got no core strength whatsoever, and I'm like, and my back hurts all of the time. I'm like, I think there is pressure points pushing on these nerves and it's causing my legs to go numb and my toes to go numb and it's causing poor circulation. Unfortunately, the only thing I found to help that is PT, is doing these exercises. So I'm currently on a mission right now to try to get in the best shape that I possibly can, and kind of reverse all the years of damage that I've done to that lower back to my with my lordosis. And also, it can affect pregnancy. There's all these things correlated with it. And I'm like, why am I the only person who's been saying this? And then the sad part is too, because I'm in the industry and I work out a lot and I know things, I go to these PT and they're like giving me like stuff I already do every single day. We're going to show you what a dead bug is. We're going to show you, how to lift your hips in the air and hold these poses. I'm like, I already know all this stuff. So I feel like people are honing in on things when the obvious answer could be right there, even down to gastrointestinal issues. It's like just by asking enough questions, I feel like you can figure it out. And you really, truly do know yourself better than anyone else. So I'm on this mission right now, hoping that if I can really build my core strength, and, that low back area, and try to correct it. I don't know that there really is any way to correct it. I might get a back brace that can help, but I also don't want to like depend on the back brace and then not build the muscles, that kind of a thing. I'm hoping that that will help with the numbing and the circulation, and then maybe I could have a baby, and maybe that's all it ever was. Who knows? It's crazy. It's so crazy, but nothing else is leading me to the right answers. All of my B work, my blood work comes back good, and there doesn't seem to be any other obvious issues. Knowing yourself too, and finding a person that will actually listen to you is going to be helpful. So I know that kind of change can do me good, because no one is going to say that diet and exercise is bad for you. That at the end of the day, when we find out all of these things, everyone's trying to do special creams and, make their skin better. And then you start realizing it all just comes down to what you're eating and your exercise. You're just like, well, here we are back again to diet and exercise. Drinking more water, tons of water is going to fill the lines in your face so you don't have as many wrinkles. It's just so many things that we really can do that the earth provides already. And really comparing ourselves to the right things, like compare yourself to nature, compare yourself to those plants, and maybe you'll find your answers. And I do want to believe that people can change. But then is that just a part of them never growing? There's something stunted there, which is why you should probably go to therapy. I think some people don't even know that they need therapy. I think it's a good risk. If you're going to take risks in your life, go to a therapist. You never know. Maybe you'll uncover something that you didn't realize you needed to talk about or correlate, and just getting a different perspective than just the same people that you put yourself around all of the time. And I'm a little biased because, like my dad, it's like I would love to believe that he could change, but he sees alcohol and he wants it. And he sees, like even when we were at my uncle's house the other day who passed, we were getting some things there that we could keep, in memory. And he grabbed my uncle's shot glasses. And I was like, what the hell is a 66-year-old man going to do with some shot glasses? What are you, 21? You're going to go do some shots in the garage, Dad? It's just like, and then it triggers me. It triggers me. And he doesn't know why I'm mad all of a sudden. It's like, why don't you see? Like your obsession, and it's not just that, it's the hoarding. And I know that people who have emotional distress and issues, they like to hoard. And it's really a form also of considering other people, because I've also seen them hoard like baby stuff, like for me, thinking that like one day I'll use this tricycle for my child and it's sweet, but it's like, okay, well, I get that you're doing that, but this is an emotional response and it's not helping anybody in the moment, you know? And I get that because I literally just bought a birthday present for my best friend the other day. And I was like, well, I'll save this for her birthday, but that's not hoarding. That's different, and it's, I think therapy can help you acknowledge those little habits, but I also think in therapy, I don't know if you're allowed to do this, but I would like to be able to go to a therapist for my family and be like, here, let me give you the rundown. And then let me know if you notice these things. But then people will be like, well, then you're going to ruin it because then you're making the therapist bias by giving that information. So I get that too. But like, I so badly want to help. I'm like, let me just give you the lowdown because I'm also afraid, like I said, that people who don't really want to change, they go in just for their emotional reasons and they don't really want change. They go in because they just want to talk to somebody, because they are depressed and they don't even realize what their underlying issues are. But a really good therapist can acknowledge why that person is really there. And that's why I say, like, go to different ones, because some can be lazy and some can be, they can see it right away. And it's kind of that like empathic ability. This is why I wanted to be a therapist, because I have the sad, what I call, I've said this before, superpower of seeing right through people. It's crazy. It kills me because I see people like on social media too, and I'm like, that's fake. That's not real. Like some people post posts as if it's genuine, like, oh, I just did this in the moment. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You clearly were recording that and you did that on purpose, Like, that's not real. And I hate that I can see through certain things. And I have empathy, and it's not just having empathy. It's like being able to feel somebody's. It's like, hippies are like, I can see your aura. I can see your color. A seer. I'm not a prophet, and those people are not real. And I feel bad for anybody that thinks they are. It's a thing. This is why these people pick up and leave and go to the next person. It should not be legal. But I do feel that there are people out there that can feel someone's energy, and their instincts on it are usually pretty spot on. They also can be confused by people who are natural narcissistic manipulators, people personality disorders. I can feel it, I can sense it, So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, because then I can end up harping on something. I'm like, everyone believes that? That is so fake. How are you believing that? And then I get frustrated that people are falling for it, the same way I am with this election. And speaking of change, guys, I am turning into Cougar Town. I am telling you, if I was single, I would probably be all about dating and trying to get with some 20-somethings. I do not know what's going on with my hormones. This must be like, perimenopause, whatever. Like, it's so funny. So I do these simulations. I was at work the other day as an actor, and the simulation was with a young male nurse. And the thing is, it was a rotating room all day. So I had like females, and these are students trying to become nurses. So most of them are young. Granted, some older people come into the program, and I'm supposed to be this exhausted insomniac. They put, dark circles under my eyes. I look like ass, right? It's great because I have to clock in at like 6:30 in the morning and I'm allowed to look like crap. It's wonderful. However, I do all of these, and the last person of the day is this handsome guy, right? And I'm supposed to be kind of, very tired, not smiling. I haven't had sleep. I have these headaches. I'm a miserable human being. And this guy is so friggin' handsome. He's got these like gorgeous blue eyes, and he's like muscly, like a nice butt. And he's like, look into my eyes. He's got this light because he has to check my eyes because I have insomnia. And he's like, when I look into your eyes, what I see is, and I'm like, what do you see? What is it that you see when you look into my eyes? Like, and I just couldn't help myself. I'm just like, I tried everything to not smile. And I'm like, and I told him, well, my husband, when he always says when he looks into my eyes, he sees little galaxies, And it took everything. I had to be like, okay, somebody dying, I'm trying to like method act. I'm like, I have suicidal thoughts. Oh my God. I was just doing everything not to smile at this person. And then like at the end of it, like, there's like an announcement that comes over, like your scenario is over. And then the guy's like, oh, okay, well, thanks so much. And I like look at him and I was like, you're really hard not to smile at. And he just like giggles and walks away. And I was just like, whew, I am flustered. I'm like, my goodness, like what is wrong with me? And it's so weird because it's the same with like celebrities and your friends. Like you still look at Zac Efron like he's this little kid. I just watched that movie with Nicole Kidman and I'm just like, what? They are so far apart in age. This is so weird. However, I'm sitting here like it's like my brain, like we're growing and we're getting older, but our brains like still look at people as if they're young. We just keep remembering them that way and we forget that 20 years have passed by. And then when new people come out, like we can acknowledge like what it was like to think like a 20 something year old. So we're like, yeah, that person's cute. And it's kind of hard for me to wrap my mind around that. Like I'm in this like older age bracket now. It's like, I can't believe it in my head. I'm like, wait, someone's looking at me like I'm an older person. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I personally feel like my generation looks great. I feel like we all look pretty young, for our age. And now we're in this new world of Botox and stuff like that, which like I'm fine if people do like a little bit of that, but like understand that these fillers and things like that, like they can really stretch out your skin. Some beautiful actresses are just starting to look weird. They are not aging gracefully. They are like in denial of going into the next age bracket and playing a grandmother or something like that, where they need to accept it, and stop ruining their faces. Because it's hard for me actually even to watch something. Sometimes I will miss an entire scene because I'm so distracted by their faces. And I'm sure people that do Botox do the same thing because they're looking, oh, maybe she should have a little bit more here. Maybe if she put a little bit of Botox here, she'd look better. And they probably missed the entire scene. I don't want to be distracted by that. I just want to watch the performance, and not feel like the robots that we are trying to make look like lifelike humans that we meet somewhere in the middle, that we're trying to make these robots have these human expressions that we're now trying to take away. And just to kind of touch on the change of like hormones and stuff, I was talking to a friend recently about, how we can protect our kids and then also just like how we change and the way that we think about things. I feel like when you're young, we are dealing with these changes and emotions that we don't understand yet. Some people are like, oh, I wish I could go back to simpler times. And it's weird, right? Because we learn more, we grow, we change, and we're like, gosh, the weight of the world just seems to get so much heavier as you age. And so you're like, God, I wish I could just go back to being a kid. However, we don't know how to handle our emotions. That's why there's so many young suicides and shootings and different things, because our brains aren't, I've said, aren't fully developed yet. So we don't know how to handle those emotions. Like if I could go talk to my 17-year-old self, I'd be like, oh my gosh, calm down. You're going to be fine. It's just a breakup with a boyfriend. It is not the end of the world. You will find someone new. Your life is going to change in so many different ways, but everything is such a bigger deal. You can look at letters you wrote when you were little in your diaries and just be like, wow, I was feeling like a lot of things back then, and then we get so distracted by life. And we understand our emotions better, and understand our values better as people, as humans, that then those things aren't as big of a deal and we can let them go, more freely. So there is a dynamic change there. But I also do understand that sometimes, we really do have too much on us as adults. There's too much and we know too much, and so that's why I understand it's like going back to that simplicity. Not that we should be kept in the dark or anything like that, but it's what we're able to handle. And it's crazy how we are able to handle certain emotions differently as we get older. And I think that's the positive change that a lot of women refer to. Like, I'm not the same person anymore. Because, you watch Mean Girls and you see it's like the kids these days are like, you're Riz, which I just found out some kid was totally describing it incorrectly. So now we're like passing things around that are not true. It comes from charisma. You've got that Riz, You've got that charisma, and there's like all these like slangs and things. And there's this snarkiness, right? People start categorizing people. You're cool. You're not cool. And I think that's the change people are saying is because they're trying to be an adult. Like they're trying to be like, I see this quality. I like this quality. Everyone's trying to grow up too quickly. And I think that's the positive change people are talking about. They're like, yeah, I used to be a little snarky. I used to be a little bitchy. I used to be kind of rude. I used to care about things that didn't matter. And now I've grown and understand that's not what matters. I just need the soil, the family. I just need my roots. I just need the sun. I need the light in my life. I need the positivity. I don't need all that crap. I don't need the storm. I don't need the drama. I don't need the wind that's going to knock me down. I just need the good stuff. And like a chameleon changes its color to protect itself, to hide from predators, to adapt, that's okay too. It's okay to chamele to the people around you, and I know that's not a word, but whatever. And to protect yourself, have that little bit of armor before you can show your colors, and say, I'm actually this color. Look at me. That's okay to do temporarily, but don't change. Don't change yourself, Eventually, you got to show those colors, right? Be prideful about it. And life is all about learning. I just got a bag tag for my luggage the other day, and I had written on it, nothing develops intelligence like travel. And I feel like the longer we live, the more we learn, the more that we can reflect on things as well. And for example, something happened recently where I noticed somebody that I knew for years started following my podcast page all of a sudden. And I had sent out invites for my podcast page a long time ago. Now, my Facebook says I have 1,000 friends, but my podcast page would tell you differently. And I feel like people hesitate to help others with a simple thing as following or liking something because maybe they're subconsciously jealous and they don't want to see you succeed, but they'll never admit to that. Because maybe they don't feel like they're where they're at in their lives yet. So they're like, well, no, I can't help that person because I'm still trying to get ahead. When I get to where I want to be, then I can help that person. That's what it feels like sometimes, but such a simple thing to do, right? Ask someone to follow your page, or wherever you listen to podcasts or whatever, advertising a business, we're supposed to support each other. And when you find out you need other people, that is part of the way that we are built. We all live in condensed, populated cities because we want to be near one another. We want to hug people. We feel that need, right? That we actually need other people to, push us forward. And it's pertinent in your life. So all of a sudden, say you're going through a change and you need something now, and then you are like, I'm starting my new business. How come no one's supporting me? All of a sudden you notice it when it's your turn, right? I think this person, I hope, realized that because they kept being like me, sending me text messages, come to come support me at my new endeavor. It's a place that you have to go to. And then I'm like, but you couldn't even follow my podcast. You couldn't even like my page. So all of a sudden I noticed that this person that was starting a business all of a sudden liked my page. And I thought, that's interesting. Maybe this person learned from that and was like, oh, I never supported you when you needed it. And all of a sudden I'm begging for support. It's like people see that, people don't forget, like an elephant, like we're not going to forget those things, especially when it's so simple. We're like, why can't you just support me in this moment? Also just being a good person. I told this story the other day and I thought I said it on my podcast and maybe I didn't. And I'll just say it again very quickly. But I went to dinner at this Disney restaurant and we were watching the fireworks, and the fireworks were, you could either be outside or inside. And I was watching them from the inside because I know the show, I've heard the music, and I was like, let other people. So once again, me being kind, like let other people, get to have the full effect, whatever. So I'm sitting there and there was a guy opening up the door. And he kept opening up this, and I started chatting him up. And I was like, hey, door monitor, like, how's it going? Like, and I saw his ID, like he's worked here for a while. And then I was like, you know what? And I was like, used to, work during that show. I was like, I flew off that castle. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I flew off of it. He's like, wait, like Tinkerbell? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, no way. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I did that in 2007. He's like, that is so cool. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I get a little emotional sometimes watching it. I was like, just because I can like viscerally remember doing it. And it was like so cool hearing the crowd be like, oh my gosh, look at Tinkerbell. So I'm going through my dinner and I'm like, oh, I might get some limoncello at the end of this. And I asked, and then I was like, no, it's okay. I won't get it. And she shows up with it. And she's like, here's limoncello. It's on the house. And I'm like, what? By who? And I'm like looking around, couldn't figure it out. And like so much time had passed. And then she's like, the owner. And I'm like, the owner? I don't know the owner. What are you talking about? And then she comes back. She goes, actually, your entire meal has been comped. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so she's like, the owner. And I'm like, what? And then I'm like, oh my God, the doorman. He wasn't a doorman. He was the freaking owner of the whole restaurant. And just because I showed him kindness and started up a conversation with a doorman, like we talked more about than just me, of course. But like I just decided to talk to him because he was there and I showed him kindness and nobody was watching. I wasn't, doing this to get attention to show other people that I'm a nice person. It was just me and him. And it's like that's kind of the change that happened to me in my life as a person who traveled with the circus and did all these things is like I've never met a stranger. It's like you never know who you're going to meet in life who could make a positive impact in your life, who could buy your dinner for you and help you out when you're actually struggling in so many ways. Financially, I was struggling. I have a new job now, but financially, I'm struggling. I'm, dealing with this infertility stuff. Like, I felt so like, wow, thanks, karma. Thanks for the kind gesture, of just comping a meal. Like, and it was lovely. And then there's changes in a marriage. And like, it's so crazy, but like, you hear the tropes, the little theories and all the things people say. If you get past the 3 years, you're doing great. If you get past 5, you're in it forever. It's like kind of, going through these milestones together and growing together. And, I do feel like people in the back of their mind have like a bail mentality. Like if things are going awry in the first few years, they're like, well, I could still get out of it. They just got to do this one bad thing and I'm gone. And people can have those mentalities, but then something starts to happen and these changes happen. And one thing that I've always been really good about, and I wish more people could do it, maybe it's a form of like meditation for me. I can like viscerally, and this is like the empath thing, like I can put myself in that position before it's too late. I can be like, what would it be like to not be with my husband anymore? How would I really feel about that? And it's like, we've been in really bad fights before where I felt that panic, like, oh my God, no, 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 this isn't what I wanted. Oh my God, no, no, no. Let's go back. I can't live without you. Like, I love you. And not that I'm dependent. The great thing about our marriage is I really do believe in being two independent people that love each other for who they are and they live together, that you are not dependent on the other person. But oftentimes in a marriage, our spouse puts up with the worst version of you so that other people can enjoy the best version of you, and that is this positive change, this understanding of a human being and their moods. And sometimes their moods have nothing to do with you, it's just learning the person and growth, not complete change, but that growth. And so that's the weird thing about the word change and growth for me. I don't know that anybody can really change. I mean, you are what you are. You are a product of your environment, your nature, and your nurture. But you can grow, and that with that growth is like a change, and that's how I feel about it. I also feel like in this country, we don't respect our elders as much, the people who've paved the way for us, as they do in other cultures. I really do feel that way, especially with the way that we're treating Biden and people are like washed up this and, too old and it's like they don't matter in society anymore, and I feel like really other cultures are like they go to their elders for knowledge, and there's just a different kind of respect that is there that I feel like our country is lacking. So that could be a wonderful change for this country. And I really do feel like as you get older, like living for the estimation of others, you realize is a trap. And once you break free of that, then the world opens up to you. And don't forget that there's people out there that can change in a bad way. And then we revert back to the like, don't forget where you came from, you know? And that's also, though, part of growth. It's going to be, hills and valleys, and it's changing throughout your course. People have different timelines. Some people, don't succeed. Maybe people succeed really early on, or they think that they are, and they're like full of themselves, and then they crash and burn. And then they're like humble, right? And then there's people that all of a sudden are at their peak, and then now they're acting different. And now they've got something to say. And now they feel like they are untouchable. And so then they are treating people with disrespect and not realizing that that's what they're doing, because they're taking their new power and not using it correctly. So sometimes there can be bad change that can happen. And it is remembering, okay, how can I use this in a positive way? Power is a scary thing once you get it. And you've got, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So we don't want to change for the worse. We want to change for the better. And it's just being self-aware, understanding, how am I coming across? How is this going to benefit other people, or is this just benefiting my selfish needs right now? And life is hard, and sometimes we are down in the dumps, but sometimes the obstacle is the exact thing that protects us, right? You're down in the bunker, and maybe you can't see beyond that bunker, and someone's about to throw a bomb at you. And we see it as a hindrance, but it's actually an opportunity to safeguard you, giving you exactly what you need when you needed it. So it really is just kind of reforming the moments in your life and understanding what their purpose was in that time. And I think understanding that you're not alone through those tough times, because truly it's the hindsight is always 2020. You can't see it when you're in it. I'm like, but you'll see it on the other side of it. We make changes all the time in our life. We make sure to change out the filter in our AC. We make note of it to make sure it's still working properly. We change our oil, check our brakes, our tires to upkeep and make sure there are no accidents. How often are we doing this in our marriages and our friendships? We can wash the outside of the car to make it look pretty, but is it really working on the inside? We know what it feels like when you just shove stuff into a closet when you're having people over rather than organizing it. Hiding the mess doesn't fix the mess. I believe our brains are powerful. I believe that we give up on them and we get set in our ways because it's proven. Like, you at a certain age, it's like you stop learning. It's like you have decided, that's why we say, like, we're sponges when we're little. You got to get in there when they're young. But I do believe that there's ways for us to work on ourselves, and I think we just got to take more time with it, and focus on it. Because, like, when you're a kid, it's like you have more time, right? Like, that's what it feels like. And then when you're an adult, you're just like, oh my God, there's too many things, let's go back to the simpler days, like I was saying. But it's like just processing your brain, and also just acknowledging things. Like, for some white people out there, can you admit to yourself that when you enter a room full of Black people, that you feel nervous or intimidated or out of place? Imagine how the Black man feels, that they are used to this now, that they are the only, oftentimes, Black person in a room full of white people, that they've had to be comfortable with that for a long time. This is your discomfort. This isn't a problem with them. This is a problem with you. Can you work to change and dig deep and ask yourself, why do I feel that way? Why am I feeling this uncomfortable, intimidating, nervous feeling? And understand, like, what you were taught in society, right? We've got to change our minds. We've got to make a change to move forward positively, not go back, not make it like it used to be. We've got to be able to move forward, because our country is returning to racism, when we have come so far. And other countries are laughing at us, because they are a melting pot. You go to London and there's Black, Asian, and Indian people. They're on the same playing field. What's another thing that's just completely different? that I want to change is paparazzi. I don't understand how this is legal. You know, it's like we have restraining orders that we put on people. They can't come within 100 feet of our house, you know, and I get, oh, if they're not on your property, they're allowed to be in the public street. I just think this is no way for anybody to live. You know, these celebrities often know these people by name, you know, and it's derogatory. It's degrading. It's embarrassing. You know, it's gross when you see these people yelling at celebrities, yelling their name over and over and over again, and like, you know, trying to get them to look at the screen like they're dogs, like, look over here this way, you know, like saying little things like they aren't human, you know. I feel like, you know, the celebrities are doing a pretty damn good job of already posting on their own social media accounts. Like, we don't need your bullshit, your fake propaganda, your assumptions about other people's lives, and just taking pictures of private moments. Like, come on now. This in real life, if somebody had done this to a regular pedestrian human, we'd be like, what the hell? And we'd be getting a lawyer. Like, this has to change in our society. These celebrities deserve to have a normal life. It is harassment. We are often defined by our choices, and more with social media, we cannot hide from them. Once they are there, they are there. But regardless of a bad choice made, just like with these elections, there's always time to grow. There's always time to change the course and say, well, this is what I want now. Just like, you know, a stand-up comic saying something in our time, which was fully acceptable, even all of the interviewers, you know, all of the, you know, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, all these things, inappropriate talk show hosts, things that we were used to hearing, okay? You can accept those. You can give people grace as long as you know they're willing to grow and move forward and then not repeat the same mistakes. So we have to believe in that for our candidates. And we have to look at the people that are willing and have the morale and want to do good for our country, not just continue to machinate ways to overthrow our democracy. Wherever life plants you, you should bloom with grace, you know, and the things that make you uncomfortable is your biggest opportunity for growth. And while this was meant to be a positive quote about having a childlike personality, you know, and just living in the simple times and being happy, I feel like this quote by Walt Disney is just great for our current candidates. But Walt Disney said, growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Katie Rose, served straight up with a twist. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and let a friend know about the show. And if you're really feeling generous, rate it 5 stars. I also love having guests on my show. So if there's a topic that you want to chat about, contact me on my Facebook page at Katie Rose Straight Up With a Twist. Or now you can directly text me straight from the episode in the details section. Just click on the link provided. Thanks so much for joining, and tune in week to week with some more Katie Rose Straight Up With a Twist.